Hi, my name is Gillian Perkins, and I wrote my first book when I was 21 years old. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how I got that book written, and specifically how I got it written in just 1 month, just 30 days. Writing a book was something that I wanted to do for a long time. I mean, I know I did it when I was just 21, so you might think, oh, well, you got right on that. But actually, I've been trying to write a book ever since I was in my teens, in my early teens. All throughout high school, I had all these ideas for books I wanted to write, and every once in a while I would start writing, actually pretty frequently I would write 1 page or 1 chapter, and then I would get completely sidetracked by a different idea, would lose momentum, and I never finished any of those books. By the time I got to college, I was just completely burnt out and I was done trying. So I took a few years off while I was in college and I didn't really try to write anything. I just focused on my homework and got distracted from my homework. But once college was all done and we got a little bit more settled in our lives, I had had my first child and I had several interesting experiences with buying our first property and just some different things that shaped me and gave me some ideas. And at one point I suddenly had this kind of little enlightenment of an idea and I was like, I really need to share this with people because this changed my life. And so it gave me the motivation to start trying to write a book, and even though I hadn't done it in a few years at all. It wasn't a very long thought out process when I finally did start writing. I didn't think about it for months or make any grand plans. I just had an idea and decided that in a few days I was going to start writing because I think it was near the end of a month. And so I thought when the new month starts, I will start writing and I'll do this, I'll see how it goes. So I started writing on the first day of that next month and I wrote about 1,000 words. And I thought, I wonder how long this is going to actually take me to write. Because you always hear about people writing novels, spending years and years, like, I don't know about you, but I've heard so many stories about people who spent 5 or 10 or 20 years writing a book, and then they tried to get it published, and maybe it took them a long time to get it published after that, or maybe they never got it published. And I thought, I really don't think I can do this. I'm not the best with commitment. I tend to get really distracted and feel stuck and give up on things that take that long. So I thought, you know, if I could write 1,000 words every day, how long would it take me to write this book? And then my next thought was, well, how long is a book? And so then I went and I looked up like word counts for popular books that I knew about how big they were. And what I found was that most novels were between like 70 and 100,000 words. A lot of common novels, and of course there are plenty of books that are way longer than that or way shorter, but I think that 70 to 1,000 or to 100,000 words is a novel that's about 300 pages or so, and obviously page numbers can vary a lot, but anyway, that's the average. And I knew that the book that I wanted to write, I did not want it to be that long. It was not a novel. It was more of a how-to book that was an explanation of an idea. And I wanted it to be fairly short and to the point, probably about half of that 300 pages, so about 150 pages, or half of that 70,000 words, or 35,000 words. So that gave me a ballpark, and I realized that if I wrote 1,000 words a day, then that would take me 35 days to get to that 35,000 word mark. And bear with me here, but so I realized if I wrote just a little bit more than 1,000 words, like 1,200 words a day, then I could hit that 35,000 word mark in exactly 1 month. Now, I know that this was super nerdy of me to go through all the math and figure out exactly how many days it would take me to write a book, but it was so encouraging to me to see that I could write my entire book in just 1 month if I just stuck with it for 1 month. And so I made that my #1 goal for that month, was to get my book written. I thought, I can deal with anything for 1 month. I can certainly get through this book if it means that I will have a book completely written. So I was just completely determined to write that book in that month, write for at least an hour a day every single day, and it didn't matter. I told myself it did not matter if the writing was amazing or if it was terrible. I just needed to get the words on the page, and that was my #1 priority. So to accomplish that, what I did was I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning because I did have a child and I was working also and my husband was working, so I did not take time off, but I just got up at 5 and I just started writing, like half asleep. I started writing. And I'm someone who works pretty well right when I first get up, so that part wasn't the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge was just waking up, but by choosing to do it first, it didn't give me the time to hem and haw and think about what I was going to write or procrastinate. It was just, I just knew I was going to do it when I first woke up, and it actually made it a lot easier. I find that if I think I'm going to do something later in the day, a lot of the time I make up a lot of excuses and I worry about it, and I find reasons why I can't do it or other stuff gets in the way. But because I chose to write first thing in the morning, I got it done. So for 30 days, I wrote at 5 a.m. every morning. I was writing for just a little over an hour every day to get that 1,200 words done. And at the end of the month, my book was completely written. So I would highly recommend this system. I am working on writing my second book now, and it is a longer book, and so it is taking me longer than a month, and I'm actually finding that a lot more challenging. It's going to be about twice as long, but instead of taking me 2 months, it's taking me more like 4 months, because it's harder for me to, you know, push the pedal to the metal for 2 months straight. So I am taking the weekends off, which is making it take significantly longer. So it depends on how long of a book you want to write, but what I would recommend is that you sit down and you do the math. Even if it sounds silly and nerdy, just do it. Find out how long it will actually take you, and then make a commitment and make a plan and find a routine that allows you to consistently write, and ignore writer's block. If you have writer's block, just ignore it and just start writing, even if you feel like you are not writing very well. I find that as soon as I start getting words on the page and the sentences start flowing, I pretty much always can overcome that writer's block. Because when people talk about writer's block, of course, they're not actually talking about the inability to write. They're talking about the inability to write well. You can always start saying something. So just know that later on, you're going to go back, you're going to edit, you're probably going to edit 5 times, maybe 10 times before it's anywhere near what you want it to be. So don't worry about having it be perfect at first. If you're trying to write your first book, that is a big challenge, and it's something that most people never even accomplish. So if you want to accomplish it, just focus on getting it done and finding a routine that allows you to get it done. Okay, so that is all of the advice I have for you today, kind of an explanation of how I managed to get my first book written, which, by the way, did go on to become a #1 international Amazon bestseller in multiple categories. So it was a pretty good book. I'll leave a link to it down below so that you can find it on Amazon if you're interested. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful to you, especially if you are an aspiring author who hopes to someday be published. And if you have any questions about writing your first book or about getting published, then be sure to leave them in the comments down below. Also, if you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up to show me that you did enjoy it and find it helpful, so that I know to make more videos like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back next week with another video.